In the previous video, I worked on deploying RLCI to a dedicated server. RLCI is an experimental CI/CD system that I'm developing using an agile approach. I document the development in the README file and also make videos about it. For more information, check out the link in the description. I got the deploy working, but along the way I also noticed some problems with the design and functionality of RLCI. In the previous video, I ignored that. So in this episode, I'll have a look at my to-do list to see what we can polish and refactor to make the code base ready for the next story. Getting something to work and polishing it requires two different mindsets, I think. Katrina Owen calls the latter therapeutic refactoring. In this episode, I'm not going to limit all the changes to refactorings, but I will limit them to something that improves the design or polishing of functionality. Some of the items on my to-do list I collected during the previous session, but others I came up with when I reviewed code later on. Sometimes reviewing code at a later point helps me see problems that I didn't see while coding. The first item I want to work on is adding a test for the case where the deploy script is called without an argument. I choose to exit with a failure in that case. This will make the deploy script a bit more user-friendly. Sometimes it's difficult to see what the error is in a duck test report. So if the output text is long, it's difficult to see what the diff actually is. So by default, duck test just prints the expected output and the actual output. But there is a way to make duck test output a diff instead, which makes the failure much easier to see. I don't see any downside to using this at all, so I enable it globally. In the previous session, I ran into a problem because ZeroPy executes its command in a shell. We already have an infrastructure wrapper for executing commands, so let's use that one instead. I start by adding the process as a dependency. Then I replace all shell run calls with process run calls. Now, the shell is not used anymore, so I remove it. The shell had functionality for exiting if there was an error. That is not present in process, so I create another wrapper around process that also exits. I also add logging as an additional polish. When I integrate my change, there is an error in the find command. I had left an escape in there that was only needed when the command ran through the shell. I remove it, and it works again. When you get an integration failure, you have to delete the temporary branch manually. There should be no need to do that, so I make sure it is always deleted by the integrate script. When installing RLCI manually the first time on the CI server, I clone the repo to the home folder. There is no longer a need for it to be there, so I delete it. For quite some time, the readability of the pipeline tests have bothered me. The long commands make them difficult to read. I haven't known a good way to improve it before, but now I have an idea to add tests for the process in directory execution part in a different class, and ignore that part in the command in the top level tests. I think now the tests read reasonably well. There, I feel better. It's like Katrina said, therapeutic. I feel like there's a tension between extending a codebase with new functionality versus keeping the codebase clean. So you start out by adding a couple of new features, and the codebase gets a little bit messier, and your stress level goes up a little bit. And then you refactor and polish, and slowly your stress level goes down again, and you're ready for the next story. I hope you found this video useful. I'll be back next week with another one. Bye.